Buck ended up coming on with them and hopefully having his situation figured out as well. But as years went on, Buck said he spent 3 to 4 years with Cash Money and none of his music ever got released. He got essentially put on the back burner while the other artists on Cash Money like Lil Wayne, Juvenile, BG, so on and so forth ended up blowing up.
That bar from 50 Cent hits different because right after the fame, young Buck got smacked by debts, legal drama, and time behind bars. But the true story goes way deeper than people ever realized, and it started way back in Nashville's toughest blocks where he learned to move with purpose and hunger every single day. Young David Brown grew up bouncing through the city like a restless storm, North Nashville to J.C. Napier to the South 7th Projects. By 8 years old, he knew the streets like a map, soaking up everything, the pain and the pride, the danger and the hustle, all of it shaping his pen and his presence. To help at home and keep a little change in his pocket, Buck did every legit grind you can name, pumping gas, cutting grass, washing cars. If it paid, he played. And that work ethic would become the engine that drove his rise when the music finally opened a door. Rap became the escape route, the therapy, the big dream. He and his day one started freestyling anywhere, battling anyone, building that underground name in Nashville's hip-hop scene piece by piece until people started taking notice for real.
And out of my ordeal back in the streets, I ended up getting shot in a home invasion and a robbery. One in the arm and one in the upper thigh area. It was enough for me to wake up and really realize that, yo, if this shit keep going on like this, I'm either to get killed or I'm go to jail. And I really realized that because I was getting down for real. Really started to devote more of my time to the music then, the studio, period.
Then came the first audacious move. Buck and his homie found a Cash Money Records number on the back of a BG Chopper City CD and called it with the wildest pitch ever. Booked the crew for a Nashville show for $5,000, and somehow the play actually moved enough to get people's attention, even though the show never happened like planned. The call landed on Birdman's radar. He was impressed by the boldness and flew Buck down to New Orleans. And just like that, doors started cracking open and the dream started to feel real for a kid who refused to be average. At just 14 years old, Buck made a massive life choice. He dropped out to chase the music full time, not as a hobby, not as a maybe, but as the one path out, the one thing he believed in more than anything else in the world, because to him, this wasn't rap, it was survival. But the Cash Money era didn't pan out the way he hoped. He spent years on the bench while others were getting released and blowing up. Buck's only visible moment from that run was a cameo in Big Timer's Big Ballin' video, and by 1999 he dipped back to Nashville to regain control of his destiny. He didn't leave empty-handed though. He learned the game, built connects with DJ Paul from 3-6 Mafia and Juvenile, and went back home focused, independent, and hungry to prove he could stand on his own 2 feet without a big machine behind him. On August 22nd, 2000, he and D-Tay dropped Thuggin' Till the End, and shockingly, it charted, number 34 on US R&B and number 17 on the independent charts, moving around 10,000 units independently, which might not sound huge now, but back then for an indie street rapper out the South, it was proof the vision was working. Then life got loud, a home invasion and gunfire became the wake-up call. Buck survived, looked in the mirror and made a vow, leave the streets alone and go all in on the music, no halfway, no double life, just the grind and the goal from that moment on. Right when he chose music over the streets, the universe responded. DJ Paul from 3-6. Mafia heard what happened, told Project Pat to grab Buck from Nashville and brought him to Memphis to lay down heat, and from those sessions came Memphis on 3-6's When the Smoke Clears 66, 61, his first major album placement that put his name in bigger rooms. Even with that look, he didn't sign to 3-6. He went back to Nashville and kept grinding indie, sharper than ever, with more visibility and more connections than before, because Buck was playing the long game, not just chasing quick deals. Then Birdman reappeared with a new pitch. He wanted Buck to join a group called Head Bassaz, and the Cash Money operation had grown huge by then. New offices, luxury on display, the whole machine. But after a week of sitting and waiting with no paperwork, Buck felt the same old vibes and knew he couldn't waste time again. And then fate walked in, literally. Juvenile pulled up to the building, saw Buck waiting, and made an offer that changed everything because he was in his own transition too and saw Buck's potential.
Juvie happened to pull up at the office, and when he pulled up, he was kind of shocked to see me there. I'm like, I've been here for a whole week. And he was like, man, you want to get up out of here for a minute? You know what I'm saying? And I took that ride with Juvie, and that's where my career started with Juvenile.
Juvie happened to pull up at the office, and when he pulled up, he was kind of shocked to see me there. I'm like, I've been here for a whole week. And he was like, man, you want to get up out of here for a minute? You know what I'm saying? And I took that ride with Juvie, and that's where my career started with Juvenile. Buck became part of Juvenile's UTP movement, but here's where he showed serious street smarts. When Juvie gave him the contract, Buck took it home, slid it under the bed, and never signed, moving carefully because he'd learned from watching the industry up close and didn't want to lock himself into chaos if things weren't stable. He dropped Born to be a Thug on October 10th, 2002, plus the UTP Players compilation on October 8th, 2002, but technically he was never fully signed on paper, giving himself flexibility if a better path popped up, which Juvenile even told him to take if it came. On tour in 2002, the bus pulled up in New York where 50 Cent was the hottest name in the city, and the driver had a link to 50's former manager Shaw Money XL. Buck pressed for the connect, and next thing you know, 50 came on the bus to record, but he came for Juvenile, not Buck. While 50 and Juvie worked in the back, Buck played his own joints for Lloyd Banks and Tony Yayo in the front, a surgical move, and one beat caught Banks' ear so hard, he brought it straight to 50, who hopped on it, and that record became Bloodhound on Get Rich or Die Trying, the album that shook the world. That wasn't even their first group record in the timeline. A Little Bit of Everything on 50 Cent Is the Future had all four. But Bloodhound was the spark that made the industry look at Buck differently, and even though 50 couldn't offer a deal right away, he remembered the hunger and the voice. When UTP eventually unraveled like Buck predicted, Destiny called back, this time with a flight to Los Angeles to meet 50, Eminem, and Dr. Dre, and the official G-Unit signing became real, turning the kid from Nashville into a global name overnight. Buck's first major placement under G-Unit was Bloodhound, but 50 played it smart. Before dropping Buck's solo, he put out the group album Beg for Mercy to cement the unit, and it went crazy. Number 2 on the Billboard 200 with 377,000 first week, and millions sold after that, pushing the whole squad into superstar territory. The rollout was textbook G-Unit. On May 31st, 2004, Buck dropped the Welcome to the Hood mixtape with DJ Who Kid to build buzz. Then on July 2nd, 2004, Let Me In with 50 Cent hit the streets and charted at number 34 on the Hot 100. Momentum was real and the city was behind him. On August 24th, 2004, Straight Outta Cashville arrived like a thunderclap. Number 3 on the Billboard 200 with 361,000 first week, certified platinum, and the second single, Shorty Wanna Ride, peaked at number 17. The records were moving, the videos were everywhere, and Buck had officially shattered the so-called Nashville curse for non-country artists. That win mattered beyond sales. He broke a long-running wall that people said couldn't be cracked, proving a rapper from Nashville could chart big and tour big, and he put the city on a new map with confidence and consistency. Then came a wild night with long shadows, November 15th, 2004 at the Vibe Awards. Dr. Dre, Eminem, 50, Suge, G-Unit all in the building, and after an alleged incident involving Jimmy Johnson and Dr. Dre, reports said young Buck allegedly stabbed Johnson. Buck went on the run, then turned himself in, later receiving 3 years probation and 80 hours community service. The case resolved, but it was the first real warning sign. The same loyalty and instinct that protected his crew could also steer him into situations that threatened everything he built, and that tension would show up again later in even bigger ways. In 2005, he stayed active and strategic, jumped on 3-6 Mafia's hit Stay Fly, which peaked at number 13 and went double platinum, and started building out G-Unit South with 50's blessing, transitioning from just artist to also a leader, an executive, and a connector for Southern talent.
A week after the deal fizzled out with UTP, 50 Cent ended up calling Young Buck and said, hey, we want that Bloodhound track. We'll pay you $20,000 for it. Let us put it on the album. And the track is getting mixed by Eminem and Dr. Dre.
He kept the streets fed with tapes in 2006, then dropped Case Dismissed, the introduction of G-Unit South with DJ Drama after finishing the legal case from the Vibe incident, using the moment to reframe the narrative and highlight the artist he was elevating under the banner. But the internal storm started forming. Around Buck's second album, Buck the World, tensions rose between 50 Cent and their manager Shaw Money XL, and 50 told everyone to move on from Shaw. But Buck's loyalty ran deep, and that's where things got complicated. Shaw Money had become a best friend of mine. I'm the best man on this man's wedding. That's how me and close Shy was. Me and Shy were probably closer than me and 50. Him and 50 was, you know. So I'm the best man off of this man's wedding. I'm judging Shy, not from a business standpoint of his problems with 50, but looking him as my brother. That stance, noble to Buck, looked like disloyalty to 50, and the shift in energy was immediate. Banks and Yayo moved with 50, while Buck and Shaw pushed Buck the World more on their own. And even though it debuted at number 3 on March 27, 2007, with 140,000 first week and went gold, the singles didn't hit like the first album, and the cracks widened. While Buck swore he was just relaying what rivals were saying back to the team, 50 felt Buck was getting too cool with the ops. Game, Jadakiss, Fat Joe, Jim Jones, and on top of that, there were accusations that Buck was moving reckless with money and skipping taxes, which 50 said he even covered twice before stepping back. By 2008, the IRS bill hit hard, around $300,000 in taxes owed, and the year got rocky fast. In January, he hit a show with Lil Wayne and Birdman, where they publicly suggested Buck leave G-Unit for Young Money/Cash Money, and Buck seemed open to it on stage, which set 50 off when he saw the footage. February 2008, G-Unit dropped Return of the Body Snatchers Volume 1, and Buck wasn't on it. Even after a recent collab called Feel Good, fans were confused, the streets were buzzing, and the vibes were clearly off. Then came the moment that reshaped everything. March 2008, Buck and 50 had a private phone conversation that nobody knew was being recorded. And after that call, things looked like they were cooling off because Buck popped up on Elephant in the Sand that same month, hinting that maybe the team could still function. But on March 20th, 2008, an interview with Yo Raps dropped where Buck said, "I'm still waiting on a royalty check, period. I've never seen a royalty check since I've signed with G-Unit. So hell yeah, I'll tell you one thing, that show money is that good. I've never in my career cashed a royalty check." The twist, this interview was old and released at the worst possible time, right when they were trying to mend things, and Shaw Money XL jumped out to counter it, saying Buck had cleared over $10 million working under 50's guidance, but the damage was already spreading. On April 7, 2008, 50 called Hot 97 and announced Buck was out of G-Unit the group, but still signed as a solo artist to G-Unit Records, and a week later, he claimed Buck had a drug problem while Buck stayed silent for a minute, clearly processing the chaos and trying not to fuel it more. On May 12, 2008, Buck dropped my interview to tell his side about the removal and the allegations, and for a second it seemed like maybe they could live separately and keep it moving. But then June happened and the bridge got burned. June 15, 2008, Buck hit a stage and yelled, "G-Unit," and that became the line 50 wouldn't accept. On June 17, 2008, 50 released a full tape phone call where Buck could be heard emotional and asking for help, and that public leak cut deep and turned a private struggle into a viral headline. Buck fired back with the taped conversation on June 18, 2008, and Game even jumped on the remix. There were rumors of a collab tape called Worth More Than 50 Cent, but it never came out, and when G-Unit dropped Terminate on Sight on July 1st, 2008, Buck was only on 4 tracks like a guest. His own group suddenly felt like a closed door. For the rest of 2008, Buck released little official music because he said 50 could block projects while he was still signed. So in 2009, he went full mixtape mode. And the hunger in that music was intense, raw, and focused, like a fighter punching from the ropes and refusing to fold. In 2009, Buck dropped Heavy, Back for the Streets on April 11th, and Back on My Buck on May 26th. Records like I Want It All and I Got It featuring Young Jeezy showed the old spark with a new edge, the pain turning into power as he fought through industry blockades with nothing but will and microphones. But the personal storms didn't stop. On August 3rd, 2010, the IRS raided Buck's home over unpaid taxes, and during the raid they found a firearm. Because of his prior conviction tied to the 2004 Vibe Awards case, that discovery brought new charges even though Buck said the gun belonged to his licensed tour manager. 3 days later, he dropped My Campaign to address it in real time, flipping stress into songs like he always did, showing resilience in the middle of mess and letting fans know he wasn't disappearing. On August 19, 2010, he filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy, a desperate but strategic move that ultimately helped free him from his G-Unit Records contract. Then released the indie album The Rehab on September 7, 2010, debuting at number 55 with over 6,400 first-week sales, a respectable showing given the uphill battle. The legal pileup continued. March 2011, G-Unit Records filed a $10 million lawsuit, but by late 2011, 50 tweeted, "For some reason, I think Young Buck is mad at me. Who cares? I'm giving my $250,000 back, sucker." A strange signal that had fans confused about where things stood behind the scenes. On March 4, 2012, Buck survived a drive-by in South Nashville where his girlfriend was struck in the shoulder. And on July 13, 2012, he was sentenced to 18 months in prison on weapons charges. The following month, the IRS auctioned his belongings, jewelry, studio gear, everything, collecting $53,000 in a public reminder of how far he'd fallen. He turned himself in August 2012, served the time, and was released October 2, 2013, a moment many thought might mark the end, but the story had one more twist that nobody expected. By June 1, 2014, 50 had mended fences with Banks and Yayo and, shockingly, brought out all three at Hot 97 Summer Jam, an official G-Unit reunion that had the crowd erupting, proof that time can cool even the hottest fires when business and legacy are on the line. They dropped 2 EPs, The Beauty of Independence on August 25, 2014, and The Beast is G-Unit on March 3, 2015, and the music knocked, showing chemistry that never really left, and giving Buck a fresh platform to remind the game who he was when everything aligned.
Sha Money had became a best friend of mine. I'm the best man on this man's wedding. That's how me and close Sha was. Me and Sha were probably closer than me and 50. Him and 50 was, so I'm the best man of his man's wedding. I'm judging Sha not from a business standpoint of his problems with 50, but looking at him as my brother.
Then Buck went beast mode with the 10 series, 10 bullets, 10 bricks, 10 pints, 10 bodies, and more from 2015 to 2018, outworking the noise and proving his pen still cut through. But the piece didn't last long because more legal trouble arrived and the foundation started shaking again. On July 15, 2016, he was arrested over allegations involving threats toward an ex-girlfriend's apartment and later served 7 months, another painful chapter that stalled the rebuild and kept him fighting to balance real life and the art that kept him steady. 2018 opened with hope. Can't Lose dropped March 30th and felt like a real reset. And there was even talk of a third studio album executive produced by 50 Cent and Dr. Dre, which had fans buzzing that maybe the Full Circle redemption arc was finally here for good. But business friction returned. 50 said Buck owed over $300,000 and hit him with cease and desist moves. And in 2019, a private conversation involving Buck and a trans person leaked online, sparking a wave of mockery from 50 and cruel social chatter. But through it all, it's important to keep it fair and respectful because privacy and dignity matter, and no one deserves harassment for their personal life. In 2020, Buck filed for bankruptcy again, aiming to resolve contract issues and counter lawsuits. The legal wrangling ran long, and in 2023, he agreed to pay $200,690 of an alleged $250,000 debt, funding it by liquidating around $1.05 million in assets, with about $445,000 going to legal fees and roughly $600,000 moving to creditors. Even with the money stress and constant headlines, he kept trying to drop music, show up for fans, and stabilize the brand. Because when the industry gate closes, the streets and the internet become the stage, and Buck always knew how to reach people directly with grind and honesty. In April 2025, he was arrested and sentenced to 30 days for alleged violations of bond supervision tied to a 2020 domestic assault case. He was released around May 12, 2025, with the trial reportedly delayed to January 12, 2026, another heavy legal cloud. But this time, Buck looked more grounded mentally, focusing on growth and accountability while steering clear of drama. He's been active on socials, celebrating milestones like the 18th anniversary of Straight Outta Cashville, talking legacy over gossip, and showing signs of peace that a lot of artists never find after years of public battles, which might be his most important win yet. Looking back, the arc is intense. Nashville kid with big hunger, cash money doors that didn't open, indie grit, 3-6 plug, UTP chess, the bus moment with 50, the G-Unit rocket ship, platinum plaques, the Vibe Awards incident, loyalty conflicts, money problems, a recorded call that blew up, mixtape rage, IRS raids, bankruptcy, prison, reunion, more courts, more pain, and still he's standing, scarred but not silent. At the core, Young Buck's saga is a study in risk, loyalty, talent, and the cost of fame. He broke barriers for Nashville hip-hop, took giant swings, paid for mistakes, fought through public humiliation, and keeps pushing to write a final chapter that's about music, maturity, and legacy instead of feuds and fines. If you rocked with this story and want to keep the convo alive in real time, tap in with Street Fame Files on YouTube, hit subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments.